Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Football Guys Best Ball Show. As always, I'm your host, Dave Kalugi, and I am joined with my co host today, James Brimacone. And this is episode 3 for us now. And we have had some pretty weird drafts so far, James. I don't think that we're looking at these as, this is how we're going to draft our teams the way that we want to. It's more of a thought exercise and really pushing us out of our comfort zone. And why don't you know it? We're doing that again today, aren't we?
Yeah, every draft should be fun like this. You don't want every draft to be the same. So yeah, this is the draft rooms I enjoy where we
Yeah.
kind of mix it up.
And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this before we got onto today's show. Obviously, everybody has different risk tolerances when it comes to how much exposure they're willing to have on a single player. I'm wondering when you draft, I know you take more of a value approach where you're trying to get as much value as you can, but you've obviously got your guys that you want as well. So, what's the highest you'll go as far as exposure on a single player?
The guys I really like, I'm probably in the 25 to 30% range, and even then, I feel a little bit uncomfortable with it. Yeah, I know that that's not a popular take on some people. They just want to like, hey, if you believe in these guys, let's go 60%, especially if they're like last round kind of guys. But I still like, just from what I've learned in the past, it's that formula just does not work for me. So I just don't like going that angle. So I'm about 25% is where I like to be on, five, six of my top players.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I don't really like going above 30%, and I'm above 30% on a few guys right now, but these are guys with soaring ADPs that I'm out on, Alan Lazard is a guy that
Hmm.
we've talked about a little bit. I was drafting him at 120s, and then once he started getting into that, I see him now consistently going in the 70s, and I just don't want to draft him in the 70s. I know last year we talked about this, you and I, and also Phil Alexander over at Football Guys. We were all in on Antonio Brown when he was getting drafted in the 130s, 140s, and then as that ADP creeped up, we were able to kind of pull off and get our exposure down a little bit. But what we're going to do today is another BDM3 draft. We just went ahead and jumped into there. So if you're watching and you want to join, looks like this one is going to fill up quickly. We've only got about 5 spots left, but it is not too late to jump into there. Um, yeah, James, we'll just hold off and tell people what we're going to do in this draft until we get about halfway through. But this should be a fun one. I'm looking forward to it today.
Yeah, we kind of have a side plan here, just me and you, but it could change, right? We could like, hey, you know what? It's like we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, sometimes there's just value that's too good to pass up, and that's a big thing that we talk about often, which we don't really do on this show because we go in with these preconceived plans. But really, you got to be water and change up your draft plan. There's sometimes where I say, this is what I want to do, and then Josh Allen falls to me in the 6th round and just completely throws my draft off, and I just got to pick up the value. So the most important thing is to play the board as it comes to you and try to implement different strategies, and that's what we hope to do with this show to show you some different strategies. So when you're in a pinch, you can try some different things out. We talked about it, James, where neither of us are really huge on the week 16, week 17 correlations. We'll stack if it falls to us, but it's not something that we're reaching like crazy for. This week, for whatever reason, I said, you know what? Every BBM entry that I'm going to do, I'm going to try to stack and correlate as heavily as possible. Every BBM entry that I did in the last week has no more than 4 games lined up in week 17. Again, it's not the way that I prefer to do it, but it's a fun exercise to get you out of your comfort zone and trying some new things.
No, I think that's how you should attack it, right? Every week or every couple weeks, you just try some new strategies, and you go. And there's going to be different values along the way every week throughout this whole tournament. So I think you're fine doing that, and I'm sure I'll land on that as well. So I'll probably stack 15 guys for a few teams, then 16, then 17, and but I'm just not going to lock myself into just like only drafting it one certain way. So I think that's the most important in these best balls.
So we just got our draft order here, and I don't know how you feel about where you pick, but I got to say, as far as 1st round selections go, seventh, that's my least favorite pick. I feel like there's a very clear cut top 6 when you're looking at Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Cup, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Austin Eckler. However you want to shuffle those guys around, I feel like that's the top 6. If those guys go in the top 6, I'm really at a struggle with 7. Who are you usually pivoting to at 7 after those 6 are gone?
Yeah, so I'm more just like top five. So I don't put Eckler in there, top six. So usually, yeah, right around here, it's going to be Eckler, Henry, maybe Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook. But maybe you go Adams or Diggs, like those. So it depends. Like you could go running back or receiver here. So I just mix it up sometimes, and sometimes someone might fall to you. So you
Right.
just don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, seven's a tough spot, but
7
also
is.
it's not as bad like later on in the draft because you're right in the middle. You can kind of avoid a lot of like position runs and things like that. So you kind of put yourself in a good spot later on.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned the name out here, and it seems like it might be a little bit of a reach, but I keep finding myself at 7 if, it gets through those first 6 that I mentioned. When I'm looking at Stephon Diggs, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook. Stephon Diggs is a guy that I don't mind too much, but, I think 7's just a little bit too early for Derrick Henry, a little bit too early for Najee Harris. And while I really like Stephon Diggs, I feel like the Stephon Diggs in the first, Josh Allen in the third is such a common build that a lot of the times I try to differentiate by taking Dalvin Cook here. You wanna
Yeah,
go with that today, or do you wanna take one of these 3?
no, I think Dalvin Cook. Yeah, I just put in two in the Bulldog. So doing a Twitter one and another one with some buddies, and we got Dalvin Cook in both drafts. So he's been pushing up my board for sure, and I think he is a first round lock in kind of play there. And I like the leverage off the. I've said this before on one of our shows, but the leverage off that Vikings passing game. So yeah, I think it's a fine pick, Delvin. And also, I think our last draft we went Madison later just to get both in the handcuff there. So
We did, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dalvin Cook, I went through looking at all of my first round exposure, and, Dalvin Cook is a guy that I have more exposure to on any guy with a top 12 ADP right now. I just feel like he should be a little bit higher. I mean, I've got him in my personal rankings ahead of Najee Harris and Derrick Henry. We talk so much about how Kevin O'Connell is gonna come into Minnesota and just revamp this passing attack. It might be a little annoying to hear because it seems like we heard about almost every running back during the offseason, but Dalvin Cook taking snaps as a wide receiver, lining up in the slot, lining up out wide. I feel like he's going to be much more versatile this year with Kevin O'Connell there. So I'm really excited about taking Dalvin Cook there.
yeah, I think his ADP's kind of sliding more to where he should be right there. And I think, yeah, I think if you want to go Eckler, Cook, or Derrick Henry, like all three of those, basically, I think they're similar, similar plays. Maybe and you hope Cook has the most upside of the bunch. That's kind of why I value him just a little bit more.
We're going to blame Alex here in the chat saying Eckler will fall to you. Thanks for jinxing us, Alex, because Eckler went at 6 and we did not get a chance to get him. But here we are up in a few picks here. I love the running backs that you can get in round 2. And that's why, we obviously started off running back here, but I'm very okay taking wide receivers in round 1 this year because of the depth of talent you can get in round 2. Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones already went off the board. It looks well, you still got Leonard Fournette. Saquon Barkley just went, but there's just so much talent. These guys feel like they should all be first rounders, and they aren't.
I think you'll see their value creep up here. So yeah, like right here, like Mixon and Swift, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. And then you just have like two pretty high upside running backs to start out your draft. And now we have so many options now moving
Yeah, and that's a
forward.
heck of a start right there. Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift. You cannot be upset about that. Both of these guys have the overall running back one clearly within their range of outcomes. So that's a fun way to start. And this always looks fun when you start with running back, but then you get into that third round. And when you're drafting a wide receiver one in the third round, it seems like it's always T. Higgins, sometimes Cortland Sutton. Is there a guy that you have your sights on specifically? I mean, AJ Brown is a guy that I'd love to get there, but AJ Brown, T. Higgins, we'll see if they make it all the way to us in round 2.
A lot of times on third round, it kind of is like all these guys that you're saying Higgins, AJ Brown, they're going to be gone. Tyreek's going to be gone. Debo's going to be gone. But Mike Williams is a guy that kind of always seems to fall to me in the third round. So I like him over Keenan Allen. But he would be like Pittman's. He's getting juiced up there too. So third round Pittman, I'm having a hard time with. But
Mhm.
like all these other guys, I'd be fine with.
Now, the one thing with Pittman is obviously he had a pretty good season last year with
Mhm.
Carson Wentz of all quarterbacks and still was able to have a good season. And now with the perceived upgrade to Matt Ryan, somebody who has consistently peppered his wide receiver one with 140 to 160 targets, we're looking at a better quality of target as well. It's very easy to understand why the hype train is going for Pittman. I mean, his ceiling could be huge this year. Matt Harmon just came out with his reception perception on him recently, and he basically has Michael Pittman pegged as one of the best wide receivers in the league when it comes to being able to win on his routes.
Yeah, if he's a name you want to just go all in on this year, I don't think it's a bad call at all. So yeah, third round Pittman, maybe that's just an auto draft here in a month's time too. Just as he keeps getting hyped up. So
I mean, the big
I
thing that
don't.
would be a knock to his value would be Julio Jones signing with Indianapolis, which we are hearing some murmurs of. You know, he's got the connection with Matt Ryan. He looked like
Mhm.
dust last year, but that would probably push his value down much more than it would actually affect his ability to play in 2022.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put any value into any of these guys that are unsigned right now and signing with a new team. It's like I wouldn't push Pittman down because of that at all.
Nor would I, but I'm saying just the consensus will be that it will push these guys down and just makes them a better value, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So as soon as if Julio Jones signs with Indianapolis, I'm going to be drafting all the Michael Pittman, and if Will Fuller signs with Green Bay, I'm just going to draft more Allen Lazard and Christian Watson and Sammy Watkins. I'm not really concerned about any of these free agents. Now we've got a
Yes.
slider right here, and I cannot start three running backs, right? But I mean, with Javante Williams in the third, looking at the guys available though, we got Michael Pittman, we got Cortland Sutton. I'm not too crazy about Marquise Brown, especially as a wide receiver. One, he's a guy that I'll take, if I've already got a couple wide receivers,
Hmm.
and I just want to finish off. But who's the guy that jumps out to you here? I mean,
Oh,
Javante
geez. Yeah.
Williams would be crazy, but that's such a good value.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for running backs. So I would, I would go Williams here, but I'm fine going receiver if you want to go that direction. I just,
Let's do it, man. You feel your testosterone just pumping through your body right now?
so
Hairline is starting to recede a little bit.
yeah, no, like everyone's gonna hate that three running back start. But here's the thing: you receivers are so deep. I feel like in these next 5, 6 rounds, like we could seriously just go 6 straight receivers, and I think we would like it.
I think
So
you're talking sweet nothings in my ear right now. Six straight receivers in the mid rounds, and we see it every single year. Last year, this is where Samuel came out of. Cooper
Mhm.
Cup came out of here. The year before, every single year in rounds 4 to 8, we see a handful of guys that end up cracking into that wide receiver one territory. So, I mean, the guy that I'm most excited about, there's no way he's dropping to us, but Cortland Sutton. I mean, enough people have talked about him. His
Mhm.
opportunity with Russ Wilson, his ability with contested catches, and Russ Wilson's downfield accuracy. So there he goes, kind of no surprise there. But out of this next bunch, DJ Moore is a guy that I have been totally confident drafting as my wide receiver one. I just tweeted this out earlier, but I mean, it's insane. The guy gets 160 targets and 4 touchdowns last year. He's got to find the end zone a little bit more frequently this season, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like DJ Moore, Terry, Deontay Johnson, like all those kind of guys are just they are wide receiver ones for their team, and there's so much upside there. So like any of those guys, if you start three running backs, it's not the worst. You can get one of these guys to kind of start your wide receiver run here, and you just build that wide receiver core, and you have like some ceiling wide receivers. So it's not just these big star wide receiver names that we just like assume that they're going to just keep being a top 10 wide receiver. So there's going to be new guys coming in the bunch here. So
And the ceiling pick right here would be Gabriel Davis. People talk about him being the wide receiver too. DK Metcalf is a little bit riskier. Allen Robinson is probably the safest guy, the most likely to put up low end wide receiver one numbers. Down to 8 seconds here. Make
uh,
a pick. Which one of these
I'm
guys do you like
I'm
best?
DK. I'm team DK out of this bunch.
Let's do it. Yeah, I mean, we're swinging for the ceiling here. And I just wrote about this in a roundtable article that we're doing over at Football Guys, where we're discussing the Seattle Seahawks. And everybody seems to have the same narrative with the Seattle Seahawks. This team is going to be terrible. Don't draft anybody in Seattle. And I mean, it would be crazy to ignore the fact that Russell Wilson isn't in Seattle anymore. But when we're pushing DK Metcalf into wide receiver 3 territory, Tyler Lockett outside of the top 60 wide receivers, Rashad Penny, who showed that he can be one of the best running backs in the league, is getting drafted right now outside of the 10th round. I think that everybody in Seattle is at the point now where they're kind of a good buy, whether it's DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, or Rashad Penny. I like all of these guys at cost.
Yeah, I mean DK is like fourth round. DK is still like he's been going in even further, fifth, sixth sometimes, but I just think he's has that type for just blow up games, especially you start three running backs like this. Like you're set running back, you're set at the flex. So you go DK and you hope for that huge comebacks kind of performance. And Like, let's hope Baker goes there. Let's hope they're a competitive team, and then you have a steal. So even these next receivers come like Juju and Darnell Mooney, like Bateman, like those are the picks I want. Like I don't want Brandon Cooks. I don't really want Gabe Davis like over those three. Like I would rather have those three that could be true wide receiver ones on their team. So and that's what I'm hoping with DK as well. So like I guess Brandon Cooks could be the number one on his team, right? But like Gabe Davis, I'm picking all four of these other guys you have in the queue over him.
So I think the one thing I'll say, pushing back a little bit on
Mhm.
Brandon Cooks, is last year in the games that he played with Davis Mills, which they started 8 games together, he averaged 9.4 targets per game on nearly a 30% target share over an entire season. That's 160 targets. So I don't care where they're coming on the field. I don't care who they're coming from. If you're pacing for 160 targets, wide receiver one is well within your range of outcomes. So Brandon Cooks isn't a guy that am targeting very heavily, but where we're at with pick 55, ADP of 52, if he slides a little bit under ADP, I'm okay taking him there. Obviously we're swinging for the fences big time with the wide receiver one. Get a little, oh, well, there he goes. I was thinking you get a little bit of stability with somebody like Brandon Cooks, but
No, I
I
like I
think,
like I like these three way more than Brandon Cooks. So like I'm
yeah,
glad
I
that
mean,
he goes
definitely
off
for the
before.
ceiling. There's no doubt there at all. I mean, these guys all have the ceiling. So we still got two picks before us. So walk me through. How would you rank? Well, I guess these two. I mean, we might not even have a choice. I mean, it looks like Wanna Baller might be making the choice for us, but Bateman, Juju, Mooney. How are you ranking those guys out?
Yeah, Juju and then Mooney, then Bateman. So
Yeah.
I think Juju should be also like third, fourth round pick. So hopefully this guy's listening and takes him, and I'm okay with that because I also
And
like Mooney.
and there goes Juju. Man, we are just getting sniped on every single pick that we want here.
Mhm.
And I mean, at this point, let's even talk looking further down the draft. Delvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, Javante Williams. Do we even draft an RB4 at this point, or do we just go hyper fragile and just let it ride with these three?
So the nice thing about going those three, like there's not really any question marks on Cook, Swift, or Javante. Like those are like upside good young running backs, especially with Swift and Williams, right? So you and then Cook, you're just hoping he's like that anchor that's just gonna kill every week. But yeah, we don't have to worry about Montgomery. We don't have to worry about Dobbins or Josh Jacobs or Elijah Mitchell. Like Mitchell would be the one I would think about later, but like those names, let other people take them. Let them have be a worry on their team. So I like that strong start we did at running back, and I don't mind these receivers so far. And I think like we said earlier, like these receivers are going to look nice here in a few more rounds. So
Right. And right now it's looking a little gross with DK and Mooney, but once we load up on depth, I mean, you're looking for three a week that can hit. And I think we can, smashing wide receivers through these mid rounds, we can get at least three wide receivers every single week that can hit. Now, these are the two that I have been avoiding pretty heavily at costs. Amari
mhm.
Cooper and Chris Godwin. Do you have any interest in those guys right now? I mean, Godwin, it sounds like the ACL recovery is not going well. Amari Cooper, I feel like his value right now, getting drafted at 65, it's like people are hoping that Deshaun Watson's going to come back. But if Deshaun Watson's suspension is announced and we go into the season with Jacoby Brissett as QB, I mean, there's no chance that Amari Cooper can live up to that draft stock, right?
So yeah, Godwin. For me to take Godwin here, I'd already want like four receivers on my team, but then I
Mhm.
think he would be a smash. But that'd be more like how your build's going, right? So if you want Godwin or not. So I wouldn't touch him in this build. Cooper, I think it's an okay play to be honest, especially with the Metcalf and Mooney. We're already making bets on those guys, but
Right.
but Elijah Moore and Devontae Smith, like I'm fine with those. I think they have higher ceilings maybe than Cooper.
And this
So
might be a little
and
bit
you
of a reach, but Devonta Smith, I mean, I'm taking him above Amari and Elijah Moore. You cool with that pick right there? I mean, I know you
yeah,
like the
yeah.
Eagles, and we've talked about it before. I just it's not often that a 900-yard rookie regresses in year two, and there can be an argument. There's an argument that can be made for AJ Brown negatively impacting Devonta Smith, but I think this team is just going to start throwing more. I am all in on the Eagles offense this year with Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goddard. I don't even care who the running back is. I think this is going to be a really fun offense.
No, that's Devontae Smith's one of my highest owned, but like he is actually I think my highest owned. Well, Khalil Herbert maybe at running back, but receiver is Devontae Smith, and that's the fact. Like AJ Brown pushed Devontae Smith's value down, and I think he's an amazing value right now. And I just don't see him having a bad second season. He, I think his fantasy points are going way up this year. So even with AJ Brown there.
Yeah. And now, I mean, there's a chance because I've seen Amari Cooper sliding a lot lately. So I mean, there's a chance that he even makes it back to us at 7.
Hmm.
Adam Thielen is a guy that I think that again is just getting knocked a little bit too hard. This guy's put up, points per game. He's been a wide receiver 1 in back-to-back seasons, and now here he is getting drafted as wide receiver 34. Obviously, the injuries are a concern. He's coming off that late season ankle surgery, but he's really the guy that I am targeting here if I'm looking at wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins with the suspension and seeing some decreased target share last year. He's not a guy that I'm too crazy about.
Hmm.
Michael Thomas is a guy I was drafting earlier in the offseason, but as more and more reports come out about him, I've got no interest in drafting Michael Thomas right now.
Yeah, you should have been DMing me about Michael Thomas. I would have told you to avoid that thing like a year ago. So
Yeah, I mean,
no.
it's kind of. I was actually looking at reception leaders since the start of the 2018 season. Michael Thomas is still 10th overall. He's played 7 games in the last 2 years and is still 10th overall in reception since 2018. Yeah, over the last 3 seasons. I mean, it's wild what this guy was able to do, but we just haven't seen him on a field in years. And when he does step on the field, he's not going to have Drew Brees. There's just a lot of risk right there.
No, I agree. It's just, we'll see here. I bet you these two guys get sniped before us, so I think already need to think of a backup plan here.
Yeah, he's got 3 wide receivers. He's got 4 wide receivers. So if one of them could pass on wide receivers, will be good. But I don't think any chance that Elijah Moore and Adam Thielen make it past this guy. So who are you
Mhm.
turning your sights to here? I mean, there's no way we're drafting another running back with 3 running backs right off the board there. There goes
Mhm.
Elijah Mitchell. So we still got a chance at one of these. But Michael Thomas, are you going all the way down to Renfro? I personally prefer Ayuk over Renfro, but it's pretty much a coin flip for me.
Yeah, I like that as well. Ayuk.
Then there's always my
Um,
guy. You can always fall back. Oh, did he go already?
yeah, Lazard went like a round
Someone
ago.
already drafted Lazard. Yeah, I
Somebody
mean,
somebody's been in their rooms with you before.
and it's always fun. I always like getting him as a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 4 because he's got the upside. I think he's got a somewhat reliable floor as well. But man, with him going in the 7th round now, that's getting a
Mhm.
little too rich for my blood even. But
Yeah.
I'm really happy with Adam Thielen here as our wide receiver 4 in round 7.
Mhm.
And
No, that's
suddenly, that's
see, yeah,
not a
like
terrible looking wide receiver grouping, huh?
well, and you're never gonna start really these guys in your flex, right? That's the way we went with our start, and we weren't planning on that. So yeah,
Right.
I don't hate having to start 3 of those 4 guys
Yeah.
at the top, and we can still build on that here. So
And now looking at something we could have maybe done differently. We reached a little bit for Dalvin Cook in the first round. Could have
uh
gone Stephon Diggs with Stephon Diggs on the board. And then something else that we could have done was Brees Hall over DK Metcalf. So let's say we switched it up and did that a little bit. Do you think you'd prefer that build better had we swapped out Dalvin for Diggs and DK for Brees?
probably Diggs, maybe Dalvin for Diggs might have worked, or Devonte Adams. I would have liked there too. Like I actually like Adams over Diggs, but that's just a personal preference. I don't care either way, really too much. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think that might have looked a little bit nicer, but we didn't know we were going to get Swift and Javante Williams.
We got some people liking these picks. Thielen makes no sense when we were talking about him sliding a little bit. We got Sam in the chat saying Devonta is such a value. So, yeah, after a weird round 1, 2, and 3, I think this is shaping up all right. So we'll keep looking at some wide receivers here. I mean, I like both of these guys, Tyler Lockett and Sky Moore. Is there anybody down a little bit further that jumps out to you? Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Chris Olave, Robert Woods. Robert Woods is a guy that I
So
was
out of the
completely off, but
yeah, I don't know if he fits with our build, but he could just if he slides another round maybe. But I'd go Lockett here. So then
yeah,
you're kind of
double dipping on
playing
Seattle.
yeah, you're playing, we went Metcalf, he's sliding, Lockett sliding, but we just locked in anybody's getting a wide receiver touchdown in Seattle. We own that right now. So
And it does seem, I mean, and obviously this is going to be a very different team without Russell Wilson, but
mhm.
I'd be really interested to kind of look through their game logs over the last few seasons because it seems like they alternate big weeks. I can't remember any time where these guys each had a blow up game. It seems like DK Metcalf would have a huge game, and Lockett would do close to nothing, or vice versa. It seems like they would have a very weird way of alternating their big game. So I've done this in a few builds where I've had Lockett and Metcalf, and I don't really hate it. We missed out on Juju, so how do you feel about arbitraging, missing out on Juju, and then ending up with Sky Moore or Marquez Valdez-Scantling? I think those are decent options to fall back on in Kansas City, right? Because there's still so much ambiguity in that wide receiver core.
Yeah, I'm going Valdez Scaling over both of those. The other names I like here is Chase Claypool. We've talked about that. I love him. I know you're kind of on the opposite end of him. Um, I like Kenny Galladay further down too. I think the hype's going to build on him, but obviously you can get him down for a lot further than where he is right now. Tyler Boyd's like a safe floor kind of player. Robert Woods, if he keeps sliding, he's the kind of guy you take. But I don't think
Robert Woods just went here.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, I don't care if I don't get him or not. So
we got a lunch table legend in the chat saying Robert Woods will eat this year in short routes from Tannehill. And that's kind of what started me onto Woods. I think the big fear was he's 30 years old on a new team, coming off an ACL tear. But you saw the videos, right? Like 4 or 5 months after he tore his ACL, he was already running ladders on the sideline, cutting all over the field. I mean, he looks like he is rebounding very, very quickly. They said they have no concerns that he won't be ready for week 1. So he's a guy that I've slowly been warming up to after being a little bit cooler early in the offseason.
No, I see that, but I like Treylon Burks better. I think that's going to be a better play in a tournament. But I just see more Woods kind of in that range of Kenny Galladay and even Jarvis Landry. Those are I don't think Woods should be way higher than those guys. So if I don't get Woods, then I try to get one of those guys a little bit later down the line. So that's kind of how I'm picturing. But I still draft Woods. I don't hate it, but it's usually if he falls, then I draft him. If you get Scantling here, that would be
that would be a nice
great pick in my opinion.
Christian Watson is another guy we can probably wait around for him, but another guy with a sky high ceiling here. And sometimes that's just what you do. We talked about wanting to get Juju earlier, and we got sniped on him. So we'll get Marquez Valdez-Scantling a little bit later. We mentioned wanting to get Lazard, got sniped on him. We can get Christian Watson a little bit later. So there's always ways to pivot. We wanted Elijah Moore, and here Garrett Wilson still is. So you can still stick within the same frame of thought, even if you don't get the exact players that you wanted. But I love MVS here. That's you talk about a high ceiling pick there in the 9th round.
Yeah, because
for anyone that hasn't caught on yet, what we are doing in this draft is just starting off with 12 straight running backs and wide receivers, and then we're just going to fill in with quarterbacks and tight ends. We've done a lot of these, and there are quality tight ends that are dipping into the final rounds as well as quarterbacks. So we might even have a chance for some interesting stacks here. Obviously, we're probably not getting Kirk Cousins, but we can throw in a Jared Goff, or I think there's too much uncertainty in Seattle to roll the dice there, but Justin Fields might still make it down to us into the 13th round. Jalen Hurts obviously is in. Kirk Cousins probably is in as well. But there's a few opportunities for stacks here.
Yeah, and we could be throwing everybody off too, and maybe we go quarterback here. So who knows?
Maybe. Let's see who's available.
Well, that's kind of where that was our draft strategy starting, right? Let's just hammer these running backs and receivers and kind of see how the team looks around round 10 and then kind of go from there and build. So it kind of fell to us this way, and that's kind of where we're at. So, I mean, you look at even Melvin Gordon, pair him with Javonte and just be done at running back would be kind of a cool build.
I wouldn't hate that. Well, there goes Melvin. I mean, here's the thing. We took Dalvin Cook in the first round, and then we got a sliding Adam Thielen. We said we were going to start with 10 straight, but I feel like Kirk Cousins is a really nice stack here. We're already pretty invested in the Minnesota Vikings defense. I think this is the only quarterback that I think about taking in this round. We're getting him right at ADP to stack up with Dalvin and Thielen. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And A-Rod I like as well.
I think the only other, he just went. The only guy that was really jumping out to me out of the wide receiver bunch was Tim Patrick, and he just got sniped. Any receivers here that you'd want to take ahead of Cousins?
No, I don't think so.
All right, let's do it then. And we are fully committed now to the Minnesota Vikings with this build, which I don't hate. It seems like we talk about it almost every single show, but Kevin O'Connell should really put a spark into what is a very, very talented offense. So I like the way that kind of worked out. With running backs, we've still got Alexander Madison, so we can handcuff that up if we want to. Just stay with the commitment to the Vikings. James Cook, Chase Edmonds. I don't think either of those guys really fit in to the build with what we're currently working with. Um, we'll throw up some more wide receivers here. Just keep adding. Right now we're at 6 wide receivers, but I think with this build, we want to have at least 8 or 9 wide receivers, right?
Yeah, I think eight's probably a D7, 8 was where I don't know. Yeah, I don't know yet. That would be
Landry's a
my
guy I like,
honest answer to.
and Jacoby Myers is a guy that just recently I have been drafting quite a lot of. Do you have any hard stance on Jacoby Myers? I mean, the thing for me is you look last year, he had 126 targets and 2 touchdowns. That just screams positive regression is heading his way. I mean, the guy's got to find the end zone a little bit this year, right?
So I think with our wide receiver build right now, so DK and Lockett together, that's kind of our anchor, just really wide receiver one, right? We're pairing both those together. But the other guys are more kind of spike weekish, maybe.
Mhm.
So they're going to have some big weeks. So looking down at a Jacoby Myers more for like a ceiling plug in 8 to 10 points is not a bad way to kind of fill out the rest of these receivers.
Mhm.
It obviously is not like the thinking you want for to take down a tournament, though. So you also want to think about that. So you're maybe like Van Jefferson or KJ Osborne, or maybe one of these rookies is a better way to go. Or maybe you go Michael Gallup, just like we'll have him second half of the season to kind of come out of nowhere. So that's kind of how I'd approach the running backs or the receivers a little bit here.
And Gallup could, I think that we've got a pretty solid base right now, where if we can at least advance, like you said, Michael Gallup, it doesn't sound like his recovery is going too well right now. But I think these guys, Michael Gallup, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Hopkins, who we passed on earlier, those guys that are suspended or injured to start the year, I think they have so much more value in tournaments like this because if Michael Gallup was healthy for the entire year, he'd probably be getting drafted in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round. But you're getting that injury discount right now.
Mhm.
Or if you can advance, you're getting a guy who realistically should be putting up top 15, top 20 numbers, and you're getting him in the end of the 11th round here. So, well, there goes Gallup.
Yeah, he's kind of
Again,
like
we're
he's like the discounted Michael Thomas, the discounted
yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins kind of, and Godwin, yeah. So, um,
Do
hey,
we
it
want to take
feels
Madison here, or do we want to swing for the fences with a Rondale Moore? Jameson Williams is another guy who could come back and really be the hammer at in the late season. We've already
we can
got
go.
DeAndre
Oh,
Swift, so we got a little bit of a stack
sure,
there, and we could add
yeah,
a late Jared Goff.
yeah,
Yeah,
go for
Jameson
it.
Williams isn't a guy that I've really been heavily targeting, but I feel like he fits in with this. We're looking for a guy that can really, help us out late season, sky high ceiling, a little bit of uncertainty. We're getting the injury discount, pairing him up with DeAndre Swift, and then we can throw in around 18 Jared Goff.
Yeah, I was on Jameson for probably, I was off of him to start the draft season, and then he just kept falling so far. So then I just was on him for like 3, 4 weeks, and I've kind of dropped him down a little bit because my exposures got pretty high on him. But yeah, I think he is, what is he, your wide receiver 6 or 7 on our team?
He's wide receiver 7 for us right now. So
Yeah, that's incredible. Like some people are gonna wide receiver 7 is gonna be like a Paris Campbell or something like that in this room. So it's I would much like Jameson Williams as your wide receiver 7 is kind of
and
that's a nice touch.
And as much as we love some of these late round wide receivers, I mean, this is if you're going to go really heavy with the running backs, I think this is the way to build a wide receiver core here. I think we'll probably add one more wide receiver and then turn our sights over to tight ends and quarterbacks. As far as wide receivers go, I really only want guys with ceiling at this point, though. Jahan Dotson. I kind of like all of the guys in this range, but like you said, if we wait a little bit longer, then we're looking at the Paris Campbells, Curtis Samuels, Wandale Robinsons.
Yeah, and
But
they're gonna do nothing for your team. Nothing for
right,
this build.
exactly. So do we want to throw KJ Osborne in here to stick with the really heavy Minnesota stack? Basically have everybody on that team except for Justin Jefferson, or do we want to take a look at some of these quarterbacks and tight ends? We got 15 seconds on the clock here.
Yeah, it's your call here. You make this pick.
All right, we are done with wide receivers. I like KJ Osborne. We're going to see a lot more 3 wide receiver sets out of Minnesota. And that'll do it. So we got our running backs. We might throw in another late round guy just to add another running back to this room. But Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, DK Metcalf, Darnell Mooney, Devonta Smith, Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Jameson Williams, and KJ Osborne. It's pretty solid. I like the way that turned out. And then with a Kirk Cousins falling to us at ADP as well, we got a fun Minnesota stack here, which I'm all in on the Minnesota offense this season.
Like even if they're a bad team, they're just like their fantasy points are going to be, and just they have been the last couple of years, right? Like everyone on that team is just getting points left and right. So I think it's a good offense to bet on.
Yeah. And then, I like Trevor Lawrence. He's a quarterback that I think is going to take a big step forward this year. We might be able to get him on our ADP, but we've got no stacks, no real
Hmm.
correlations with that. Albert O is a tight end that I haven't really been crazy about, but we already, paid up for Javante Williams. He's a nice little stack that we can throw in to go with that as well. There goes Trevor Lawrence off the board. I mean, for the rest of this draft, we still have 13, 14, 6 rounds left. And
Hmm.
I mean, we're probably going to want to get 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends because we're waiting so late on them. We could maybe get by with 2 quarterbacks, but I think we go 3 and 3 with quarterbacks and tight ends here. So then we'll have one spot left that we can allocate to another running back or wide receiver. Um, Not really crazy about Hunter Henry. He saw a lot of touchdowns last year, but I don't know if you can really count on that going forward. But tight ends get thin really quickly here that we might have to just pay up for somebody. Don't want Noah Fant because we're already way too invested in the Seattle offense. So let's see if Hunter Henry slides here, we might go ahead and take him. Well, there he goes. Are we paying up for Gerald Everett?
I think, yeah, it's either you're going to take one of these guys now, or you're just going to punt the last three at the end of the draft. So,
Yeah, nothing like
mm,
going into the season with Gerald Everett as your tight end one, but hey, we committed to it here. Any of
no,
these
I
quarterbacks
don't.
you think? Yeah,
I think that's a bad way to look at it, though. It's like Jared Everett is your tight end one because you're going to take three guys, and it's just like all three of these guys are my tight end ones. Whatever
yeah,
they get, like that's why we play best ball. That's why we're searching for values and knowing how the structure of these work. So, like
yep.
we didn't pay up at the start of the draft for these big tight ends, and that's just kind of the way it goes.
That's why if you want to pay a half round early or a round early here towards the end of the draft, I talk about that a lot. I mean, realistically, with the tight end in best ball, you're just hoping they could stumble into the end zone. I mean, you're
That's
not if you're not drafting a Travis Kelsey or a Kyle Pitts, one of those guys up at the top, you're just hoping for a touchdown. So if you're drafting 3 tight ends, you're increasing your likelihood of getting a touchdown every single week by 50%. And if 2 guys score touchdowns, great. Then you just end up flexing one if all your receivers did. So I don't really hate this at all. And I think we'll end up with a reasonable tight end core at the end of
like
this.
the guy in front of you just took Taysom Hill
I
in
know.
round 13. That's wild.
Yeah,
So,
maybe he's
what running backs are still on the board here?
good call. Kenneth Gainwell, who's a guy. I mean, these are our guys, Kenneth Gainwell and Khalil Herbert. I've been drafting them just about everywhere. The thing with
Hmm.
them is I feel like they can fit into just about any build.
Yeah, so I'd put both of those in the queue. They'll probably be gone as we just talked about them, but that's fine.
I mean,
Um,
Daryl Williams, he's another guy where, when his ADP was in the, 180s, I was drafting him like crazy, but now I feel like his ADP is getting a little bit steep. I don't know if I can stomach taking Daryl Williams this high.
no, I
Um,
wouldn't take him. I mean, if at last resort those guys go, then I think you go Jamal Williams. Then you just have the
yep.
Swift Williams combo and just try to, yeah, maximize your points in the Detroit backfield.
And we've still got one wide receiver spot that we can afford if we want to just stick with this hyper fragile 3 running back start here. I mean, I don't know if you're thinking what I'm thinking, but the Nico Collins Davis Mills stack in the late rounds again, never a bad idea.
That would be very nice.
Yeah, I think we're good with these wide receivers. I mean, is there anybody you think would fit in well with the wide receiver core that we have right now? I mean, now you're just looking at really speculative guys. Not really a believer in any of these. KJ
I mean,
Hamler might work in a little bit with the Javante that we got going, but that's a dart throw.
so yeah, I like Corey Davis, I like Marvin Jones, I like Robbie Anderson, like those three names, and even Curtis Samuel. I think they're just really undervalued right now. Yeah, Herbert goes right before us.
Yeah, that's brutal. I think we'll just stick with the 3 running backs. Um,
I'm going
Corey,
Corey Davis.
yeah, Corey Davis. I don't have him on any of my teams really, but I just heard Sig on the Audible the other day, without a doubt in his mind, said that Corey Davis is the New York Jets wide receiver one, and I was kind of blown away by that with them paying up for Garrett Wilson this year after the season that Elijah Moore had. But I mean, he's very confident that Corey Davis just had a down season and he's going to bounce back this year as the Jets wide receiver one. And then that opens up some other fun possibilities for us. Zach Wilson is a guy that I Love as a late round quarterback, and now all of a sudden we could stack him with Corey Davis, which makes a little bit more sense there.
Mhm.
Still need two quarterbacks, still need two tight ends to close out this draft. We don't have anybody on the Saints. We don't have anybody on the Colts. We've already got two Seattle guys, so I don't really want to add Fant here. Um, Nobody on Cleveland, but Njoku could work here. Is Matt Ryan a guy that you've been actively targeting? I mean, I just am a little bit concerned with his lack of mobility on a new team. I feel like there's a lot of risk there, and what his upside realistically is probably QB 15.
I think he is just not a guy that's ever on my team. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't like him, especially we already got Kirk Cousins, kind of this similar, younger but better offense version, maybe. But
we
like I'd
didn't get
rather,
anyone on Tennessee to stack, but I do like Ryan Tannehill, and I just feel
yeah.
like he is so underrated.
And he has
So
rushing ability. So and there's those backup running backs too. He can pair with them later, or Hooper at tight end. So this is so easy to stack the Titans. So he's always in my player pool,
yeah,
especially for these kind of builds.
yeah. I saw over the last 2 seasons, the only quarterback with more rushing touchdowns than Ryan Tannehill is Josh Allen. I mean, he's a goal line back, and he gets those touches. Well, there, somebody got us on Goff. That's a tough one. We really wanted that. Somebody reached for him over around early on Jared Goff. That's not
Mhm.
something that you see every single day, but that really blows up our Jameson Williams, DeAndre Swift stack that we were going to go. I mean, stacking the lines is kind of gross. Maybe he did us a favor there.
If Jamal Williams is still here, I might go there, and then you're just done with running back.
Yep,
But
and that puts us at
so then you're just banking on Delvin Cook just to get through a whole season healthy and just smash, and then you're banking on Javonte Williams to break out, and then you're just like we have own the whole Detroit backfield. So I like that. I don't usually go for four running backs, but in this one, I would.
I
You
like
could
it.
also go. You could go Tannehill too there, and hope Williams falls back to you because
Yeah,
I don't
we'll
think
see. I
Williams
mean,
was. He wasn't a must pick there, but I liked it.
yeah, no, I like locking up because DeAndre Swift, I mean, only 2 years in the league, but he is definitely, falling into that category of just
Mhm.
chalk him up to miss 3 to 4 games. The weird thing though, last year is when he was hurt, it's not that we saw Jamal Williams take on this huge role.
No.
Jamal Williams, his role maintained the same, and then Craig Reynolds stepped in. So Jamal Williams is a guy who I think can realistically give you a solid floor week to week. I think he's going to see, probably 10 to 15 touches every single week. And, if one or two of these guys just happen to bomb on any random week, I think Jamal Williams is solid to have as fits into this build because I think he's still gonna be giving you an 8 to 10 point floor every single week if the other guys bomb.
I agree. I also like Mac Jones here, so I think he is really undervalued.
I'm
And
gonna put
people
him
that
below Ryan Tannehill just in case Tannehill slips to us. But what is it about Mac Jones? My thing with Mac Jones, I just think the ceiling isn't really there. Not a bunch of good playmakers. It's a run first team. Mac Jones just kind of feels like a younger Matt Ryan, like I was saying.
mm,
Reasonable floor,
I
but I feel like his
it,
ceiling isn't really more than top 15.
I think is exactly what you're saying, all those points, and that's why I like him because everyone thinks exactly like you're thinking on the Patriots and Mac Jones, and he just seems fun. He seems like this leader, and who knows, like maybe he takes that next step. Maybe he has a lot more that he's to offer that we just haven't seen. Like I think he's a good, and their Patriots are a good team. Like they're a pretty decent team, but they're level everywhere at all the positions. So you just take him and you lock in the whole team. I feel like, but I like Tannehill over him right here.
Yeah, we'll go Tannehill here, and man, we're gonna be hurting on tight ends. Right now we got Logan Thomas. I feel like at this point, we got 2 rounds left. Do we go 3 tight ends or do we go 3 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends?
So yeah, you never want to panic. So you're just like, oh, we're messed up on tight end. So I think there's options here. You go
Yeah,
Mo Alley Cox. He's going to have touchdown upside. I think you could also go CJ Uzuma and Conklin together. So then you get both of the Jets guys, and you're hoping one of them takes off. But yeah, I'm not taking Logan Thomas.
yeah.
And
I can't. I have no logical reason to fade Logan Thomas the way that I do, but I have him on 0% of my rosters. Get and I know you're the same way. You're just not interested in Logan Thomas. I mean, we saw this guy have a great season 2 years ago, and the little bit of time that he played last year, he looked alright, but for some reason, my gut is just telling me to avoid Logan Thomas, and I wish I had a stronger stance than that. It's literally just my gut telling me not to draft him.
Yeah, so scroll down here in the tight ends. There's is John Bates should be there somewhere unless somebody already grabbed him. It's even did somebody already take him? So yeah, he's already gone then. But he's the guy I've been targeting as well,
Way
just
down to tight end 54.
as a last pick too.
Yeah.
But it's definitely makes you nervous with these tight ends, and you could also here we could go 4 tight ends.
We've only got 2 picks left. Most we can do is 3, and that's if we finish off. I think I'm okay with Kirk and Tannehill as 2 quarterbacks. You know, Mac Jones, Davis Mills, Carson Wentz. I don't feel like adding any of those guys to a
Mhm.
Cousins Tannehill quarterback room really does much at all. With us having the weakness right here at Gerald Everett as the only tight end, I think that we're just going to pull these guys out of the queue and just go 2 more tight ends to finish off the draft. Do you agree with that?
It's probably the way to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel especially good about Gerald Everett with any of these guys as a standalone, but I think having Gerald Everett in a 3-man tight end room makes much more sense. But man, that value on Mac Jones is pretty tough to pass.
And Davis Mills too. So
I
maybe
know, both of them.
we should have took tight end there instead, maybe. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
people went
I think
tight end.
Tannehill's upside is so much higher than Mac Jones or Davis Mills. I mean, we're still 2 years removed from Ryan Tannehill putting up a QB7 season. Last year, when everybody has left him for dead, he was still QB12. I mean, this guy has been pretty darn efficient ever since he went over to the Titans, and I'm not sure why he slides the way that he does. So obviously, if we're looking for touchdown equity here, Mo Alley Cox has to be the guy, right? Out of
That,
everybody in this list, you got to assume Mo Alley Cox is catching more touchdowns than the rest. But I do like your idea of going Uzuma and Conklin.
yeah, I'd go Mo Alley Cox, and then I think you could go a few other options here too. So maybe we just go like Tyler Conklin's, like he is good reports on him, and maybe he is the guy. Um, or
Let's
you
see. Do
bank
we have
on John
anybody else
Bates.
in Denver? I know we've got Javante Williams, but nobody else in Denver. Man, we really got screwed getting
So the
sniped on Zach Wilson and Jared Goff. That really threw a wrench in our plan.
Yeah, so probably the Jamal Williams were our bad pick, and even Corey Davis as well. So we probably could have lived without those 2 picks, but
Yeah. So
but I mean,
once we get off
don't
this,
hate
we'll
it
pull the
still.
board up and see who we passed on. So let's mark those 2 down, Jamal Williams and Corey Davis. Look at who we passed on for those because we might have a little bit of regret later on in the draft. But looking at these tight ends, you know, we are up in 6 picks here, so we got a little bit of time. Let's kind of talk through these. Trey McBride, Greg Dulcich. I mean, both of these guys are immensely talented, but betting on a rookie tight end is almost always going to be a losing bet. So are those guys that you're actively targeting or not so much?
McBride, he's in my player pool. So I would go one of the Jets tight ends here, or I like McBride or John Bates, but I know you like Johnu, so I'm
And it's
fine. I
not
know
that
he's tied to so much money and all that. I get it.
and that's what it is. I mean, it seems like this team is just like screaming for a number 1 receiver to step up. And Jacoby Myers has his moments, and Kendrick Bourne has his, but Nelson Aguilar isn't the guy. Hunter Henry, his fantasy production last year was really bolstered by touchdowns. I just feel like they've got to find a way to get Johnu Smith the ball. I mean, they're paying this guy $50 million. Bill Belichick has raved about him for years. I can't help but feel like last year was a little bit of an anomaly. I'm hoping that he can get a little bit more comfortable in the New England offense. But
Yes.
I don't mind Conklin here. He's a guy that I haven't really been targeting too much. But we've got Corey Davis. Throw Tyler Conklin in there as well, and we're making a little bet on the Jets offense. Um, Daniel Bellinger. I've been hearing big things about him and John Bates, but I mean, those are just really speculative at this point.
I also
Okay,
don't
going.
hate I don't hate Mac Jones here either. Just like, you know what? We'll punt a tight end all the way.
All
But
right,
I don't think that's gonna make you feel comfortable, but
Mac Jones. Yeah, let's do it. Why not? Why not? All right. Kirk Cousins, Tannehill, Mac Jones, one of the most vanilla, boring quarterback rooms I've ever seen. But you only need one a week, and we're gonna have at least one guy a week that's gonna step up from that group, right?
I mean, quarterbacks. So the reason I would do that is because quarterbacks more valuable. It's going to score like you potential to score 25, 30 points. You don't want to leave those points out there. Tight end, you're just not. if you get 5 points at that position every week, it just doesn't really matter. So that's the only way. But I mean, it's a lot of risk. Tight ends get injured. You have
Yep.
two that are later guys, but the way this draft went was weird. Just like everyone took three tight ends almost, I felt like. So
Oh yeah. I mean,
just
tight
nothing.
ends were dried by the time we got to round 14, 15. There were no tight
Yeah.
ends left. So let's look. These are the two that we said that we weren't too crazy about, but realistically, I mean, what other options would we have had? Corey Davis, guys still on the board, Robbie Anderson, Nico Collins, fun speculative ads, but are they
Mhm.
really that much of a difference
Probably
besides Corey Davis?
Evan Ingram we should have went with. That would have been my pick, or Njoku, one of
Yeah.
those. Like that's
Ingram
where we
or Njoku. Yeah.
yep.
I like both of those. Jamal Williams, I don't hate that pick, but who else was on the board at the time? KJ Hamler. Maybe that would have been nice to pair up with the Javante running back that we took.
Mhm.
But nobody else is really jumping out to me here. Hayden Hurst, Austin
Yeah.
Hooper. But had we taken Austin Hooper there, we would have gotten the Hooper Tannehill stack, but there's no guarantees that it would have worked out that way. Somebody else might have taken Tannehill at that point. So in hindsight, we can kick ourselves a little bit for a couple of these picks, but I think the only big mistake that we made in this one was probably Corey Davis over Ingram, Njoku,
Yep.
or Brait. I think that had we thrown a tight end into that spot, it would have been a much different looking team because not that our tight ends here were fantastic by any means, but I think that Gerald Everett and Evan Ingram looks a lot better than Gerald Everett and Mo Alley Cox.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the last pick too, we could have instead of Mac Jones, like that was like I forced you to do that right at the end, but I just Conklin would have been fine, but and maybe he has a Dawson Knox kind of season, and we're just like we could have took him with our last pick, but yeah, I just don't see like the crazy upside there, and I think it's better to go the three QBs. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
And I mean, if there's one position to punt on, it's got to be tight ends because, we might be looking at, an average of 6 to 7 points per week out of this tight end core. But there's guys that might pay up for, Dawson Knox and Robert Tunyon that could be averaging 5, 6, 7 points a week. So tight
right.
ends are tough, especially when you're not getting one of those top five guys where we know they're going to give you such a weekly positional advantage. If you're not getting one of those top five guys, you're really rolling the dice, and the odds of hitting on a later guy aren't that much worse than hitting on a mid-round guy. So again, a weird build, but that's what the show is all about, is just some fun thought exercises to push us out of our comfort zone a little bit.
No, it's definitely the 18 rounds kind of get you. You have to like I said this every podcast I go on, you have to sacrifice somewhere. So you're not going to get like this crazy nice beautiful balanced at every position. So I feel like that was really the only position that we kind of punted on, and yeah, maybe if we lose because tight end, I've seen it in the past. A lot of playoff teams in these tournaments, like
Mhm.
they have zero tight ends, but they've got into the playoffs. So like both like two or three of their tight ends are just completely zeros in those playoff weeks. So it just goes to show you, like tight end is not your going to be your number one factor if you have a playoff team that advances in these
And
contests. So
And something that jumped out to me last year, the overall winner, Liam, who won Best Ball Mania 2. I don't know if you remember who his tight ends were, but he paid up for two tight ends that ended up being pretty big busts. I mean, Mike Gesicki technically finished the year as tight end 10, but he didn't have a great season by any stretch. And he paid up for Mike Gesicki and Noah Fant. And in hindsight, knowing what we know at the end of the season, he almost assuredly would have passed on those guys for just about any running back
mhm.
or wide receiver that was on the board. But
Yeah,
he paid up for two tight ends. They both busted, and he still ended up winning the entire thing.
yeah, Noah Fant had a breakout, right? Like at the end of the year, he was just like incredible. So like big, I think like 20 plus point game. So if we get that out of one of our guys, like maybe we're just treading water at that position, and one of those guys stays healthy at the end, but he has like a 15 plus point game, like that's gonna leverage us up. So
Yeah.
I like
Who's to
that.
say Mo Alley Cox doesn't have a 3 touchdown game in week 17? Who's going to stop him?
Yeah, there you go. A couple $1,000,000.
Well, James, as always, it's a ton of fun. Just drafting some players that I don't normally draft, getting out of my comfort zone, trying out some new strategies here. What we're gonna do next week should be a ton of fun. And what we'll do is 24 hours before we air the show, we'll actually run a Twitter poll from the Football Guys page. So be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/football guys, or yeah, youtube.com/football guys, so you can watch the show, but also on Twitter at Football Guys. we're going to run a poll and we are going to leave it up to you. We're going to throw a few different draft strategies out there: 0 wide receiver, 0 running back, bully tight end. We're going to let you vote on what strategy you want to see us implement in next week's show. So follow at Football Guys on Twitter so you can vote in that and just force James and I to get out of our comfort zone yet again.
Yeah, well, it's fun drafting with you because I can see you squirm like every time I'm making suggestions each round, and you're just like, this isn't how I draft. So
See,
it's
you
kind
get to
of
look at me and you get to see my emotions. I'm locked in on the board trying to make the pick. So I'm sorry if I'm showing my hand a little bit too much. But hey, like I said, you give me Corey Davis is a guy I have on no teams at all. So now if Corey Davis hits, at least I got him somewhere.
yeah, and he's your wide receiver 9. So if you look at it that way, you're just like, oh yeah, that's great. So
Yeah, wide receiver 9 is not going to make or break your year, and if it is, you really screwed up the front end of the draft. But James, before we sign off here, let everyone know where they can find you on social media, when the next best ball report is coming out, and all of those fun things.
yeah, just same as always, James Brimacombe. I'm on Twitter. So I've the best ball report. It's kind of the holiday weekend kind of got to me, so I'll get that out tonight. I'll probably see it in the morning. And I'm also doing kind of like a fun underdog bulldog kind of community draft on there. So each round I'm up on a slow draft pick, I will post a kind of top 4 that I see on the as far as my rankings in ADP. And then just come and vote and kind of build a team together. It's been kind of fun so far. So that's what I'm up to these days. So
Excited to see who you land with in round 4. Walk us through because you've been running Twitter polls on these. What were your first 3 picks so far?
so I actually I got Delvin Cook. I'm actually kind of spacing all of a sudden. So let's see. Delvin Cook, DeAndre Swift at 204, and then Kyle Pitts 309.
I mean, we could have started this draft the same exact way. We just opted for Javonte in round 3, but that's the same 1-2 start that we just had.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be Terry here in pick 4. He's winning this next vote by a landslide.
All right.
McLaurin.
No DK? No DK in that poll?
Oh wait, no, McLaurin already go. So no, DK. Nobody wanted him. He's still there. So
All right. Well, I guess you and I are going to die on that hill because we have both been beating the drum for DK Metcalf. And anyone watching the show, it's DK Metcalf. Why is this guy getting pushed into wide receiver 3 conversation? It's DK freaking Metcalf. He's going to go for 1,000 yards regardless of who's throwing the ball to him. He's still going to have those monstrous games. Don't overthink it. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is. Draft him now because what will happen, and I expect this to happen, is that they're going to trade for Drew Lock or Jimmy Garoppolo, and then his ADP is going to jump a full 2 rounds. So get him now for the cheap while you still can. But yeah, be sure to check out James's best ball report when that comes out. This time of year, I'm working heavily on player takes. So I just came out with an article on Allen Robinson and why I expect him to bounce back. And then I've got an article that should be coming out any day now on Aaron Rodgers and why he is still an elite fantasy quarterback despite losing Devontae Adams. So you can find all of those on Twitter at Dave Kluge and most importantly at footballguys.com. But thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.